Reverse by Black K. Cat. Chapter 14. The Law Refuge. There's a small, weathered inn several hours from Ame's border, tucked in between the rocky flatlands and a few marshy stands of trees. Stopping isn't the best idea. That would be avoiding all signs of humanity, sticking to the woods and hauling ass across the elemental countries to get to Kumo. However, there's been no sign of pursuit from either Suna or Kanaa. The sandstorm did an incredible job of covering their tracks, and Fuji is getting tired in a way that a few stolen hours of sleep won't help. On top of that, Naruto and Gaara are both starting to look a little grimy, and Kurama knows that he's no better than the boys. Some faint flicker of caution has Kurama cutting off a square of his own blanket before they can enter the building and tying it over Naruto's bright hair. Then he sits back on his heels and regards the two boys closely. He can probably get away with claiming relation to Gaara, despite the difference in their skin colors, and since Naruto is about the same age, it's easy enough to write him off as either another relative or a friend. "Stick close, okay," he reminds them, offering his hands. Fuji is curled around his neck again, eyes heavy and tails drooping, and Kurama knows that the second she hits the photon, she's going to be out for the night, even though the sun is still up. "Gaara, think you can call me Kuramani while we're in here?" Aquamarine eyes go wide. Gaara bites his lip and looks down and sneaks a glance at Naruto without answering. Apparently understanding the implied question, Naruto beams! "It's alright, Gaara," he says reassuringly. "He can be your Kuramani too." In for kunai, in for the old damn weapons store, apparently. Kurama stifles a sigh and waves his hands impatiently. Yeah, come on, brats. I want a bath more than I want to breathe right now. Here's hoping they need a bunch of wood chopped. "Are you gonna be a woodcutter and a shinobi, Kuramani?" Naruto asks interestedly, taking his hand without hesitation. Gaara steals another glance at him before he carefully does the same, and Kurama offers both of them a smile as he rises to his feet. "Why not?" he huffs, squeezing their fingers gently. "It'll be worth it to stay the night. If any of the other Biju try to make something of it, he'll pound their faces in, so who cares?" The bottom floor of the inn is completely empty when they step in, only the innkeeper, as grim and weathered as her inn, seated behind the main desk. Sharp eyes immediately snap up, flickering across Kurama's tattered clothes and down to his bare feet, and then narrow sharply. 50 Rio for you for one night and 20 apiece for the boys," she says flatly. "Money up front." Never has Kurama realized more clearly just how far the elemental nations came under Naruto's generation. Right now, Ame is still only 7 years come from the Third Shinobi War, and while it didn't offer nearly the devastation of the second, it was still a war. There's no room for kindness here, not yet. Not with that in their pasts. "Will you trade for work?" Kurama asks, trying not to sound too gruff. "I can chop wood or take care of—" "Money up front," the woman repeats, unbending. "I can't afford any charity cases. If you don't have the funds, move on." All too aware of Naruto and Gaara, tense and silent and half hidden behind him, even as they grip his fingers tightly, Kurama tries again. "Look, I'm sorry, but just one night. There's a storm coming. Anything you want done, I'll do it." The innkeeper glances at Naruto and Gaara for a long moment, but her lips press into a tight line and she shakes her head. "I have no need of work, if that's all you have to say." "Put it on my bill," an unexpected voice orders, deep and sharp, and Kurama startles, jerking around. There's a man in the doorway of the inn just stripping off his Hiyori. Short, a good head shorter than Kurama, with dark red hair and a beard that comes to a point. He's lacking the armor and crown-like headpiece Kurama last saw him in, but he's still familiar. More to the point, so is the hot every chakra thrumming through him, tasting of molten rock and vast, potent pride thick enough to choke on. Brown eyes flicker across Kurama's face, then down to the little boys pressed close to him, and Son Goku's Jinchuriki offers a small, crooked smile. Glancing past them, he looks back at the innkeeper and says again, "I'll bite. Add that room to my bill. I wouldn't wish a storm like that on anyone, let alone 2 kids." It takes effort for Kurama to swallow his own pride. Because of all his siblings, Son has always been one of the hardest to deal with. Still, the man is right. Outside, there's a wind picking up and the clouds have been getting darker and lower all day. This is for Naruto's comfort, his safety, and because of that, Kurama manages to incline his head to the red-headed man. "Thanks," he says, and it comes out rough. I know you won. Unlike with Matatabi, there's no cryptic, unnerving sidestep. The man simply nods, waving Kurama forward as he goes to snag the keys from the innkeeper. Kurama, you just missed on, he says. He left a few hours ago to find Killer Bee on Tuttle Island.
Killer Bee?
Naruto whispers very loudly from behind Kurama's leg, tugging at his pants.
Kuramani! Who's that?
Son's host studies the boy for a moment, then crouches down so he's closer to eye level, though he doesn't approach. Be happy you don't know, he says a little dryly. But he's like us. Has a bijou trapped inside him. For a given value of trapped, I guess. Naruto and Gaara exchange wide-eyed looks, and Naruto blurts,
You're a Jinchuriki too?
The older man nods, looking faintly awkward. That I am. I'm Roshi, and I've got the Yonbe living in my head. What about you two? Gaara slides back a little, tucking himself further behind Kurama, and Naruto glances at him, expression shifting from interest to weariness.
Kuramani?
He shouts again, and really, Kurama has to teach him subtlety if it's at all possible. Knowing Naruto, it's probably not. A quick glance at the desk shows the innkeeper has retreated elsewhere, so Kurama nods, ruffling blonde hair, and then crimson. It's fine. Roshi is a friend. Tell him whatever you want.
I've got the Kyuubi in me,
Naruto says immediately,
and Gaara's got the Shukaku.
Roshi blinks, taken aback, and glances at Gaara, then up at Kurama in what is clearly a request for translation. The Ichibi. Kurama clarifies, reluctantly amused. He looks down at the 6-year-old redhead, who looks solemnly back at him, and then tentatively raises his arms. Kurama chuckles and scoops the boy up, propping him on his hip, and Gaara drops his head onto Kurama's shoulder, half hiding his face.
Me too, Kuramani!
Naruto insists, reaching up as well. With a snort, Kurama snags him by the back of his shirt, hauling him into his arms, even as he tries not to unbalance Fuji. If you want to talk, can we do it after I get these two into a bath? He asks Roshi. It's getting hard to tell dirt from skin. For all of us, I think. Roshi's lips squirk, and he straightens. This way, he says, heading down the hall to the right. Your room's only a few doors down from the bathroom, right next to mine. I think she's trying to make sure the dangerous-looking people stick to one area. From the looks the woman was giving them, Kurama would believe it. He snorts softly, then says, Fuji, hop down and find a bed. If you fall asleep there, you're going to slip off and crack your skull. I will not, the fox answers, making Roshi jump slightly as she lifts her head. Kurama can't quite see her face from this angle, but he knows with absolute certainty that she's smirking.
Besides, Kurama-sama, it's not as though a fall from this puny height would hurt in the least.
Shut up, Fuji. Go sleep. Kurama snaps, bristling, and she huffs, flicks her tail smugly, and leaps to the ground. One amber-eyed glare at Roshi has him hurrying to unlock the closest door for her, and Fuji offers him a prim,
Thank you, sir,
as she trots inside. Brows raised, Roshi glances from the disappearing tail tips to Kurama, who rolls his eyes and crouches down, settling the boys on their feet. Bathroom's there, he says firmly, pointing to another door standing ajar. You two can manage a bath by yourselves. We can, Gaara says quickly, grabbing for Naruto's hand.
Yeah!
Naruto agrees brightly.
Sakura-chan says she and her friend take baths together sometimes because they're friends, so we can do it too! Gaara's a better friend than me and Ino!
The name is a twinge. One more of Naruto's precious people who died to buy them time to get a group of children to safety. Sakura had been heartbroken afterwards, inconsolable, and little hurt Naruto more than loss and grief. Still, the childish words make Kurama smile, and he gently tweaks Naruto's nose. Yeah, you're pretty good friends, all right, he confirms. Go on, Scram. Wash everything. Naruto gives him a beaming grin that promises chaos, then bolts, towing Gaara along behind him. The bathroom door slams closed as they vanished, and Kurama rises back to his feet, shaking his head. Somehow he suspects that this won't end with the bathroom in anywhere close to pristine condition. But, well, after their reception, he can't say he's all that inclined to be accommodating. Once the sound of running water and muffled voices is loud enough to prove that the boys are thoroughly preoccupied, Roshi jerks his head, gesturing Kurama into the door a few feet down the hall. Wikitogemon, he says, and heads for it without waiting for an answer. Kurama snorts, mutters an insult as to Son's intelligence, and follows. Han passed on the message, he asks as soon as they're seated around the low table. Roshi looks up from his bags, bottle of sake in one hand and an ochoko and a teacup in the other. You mean someone besides our villagers is hunting us? Yeah, that weird bastard with the masks on his back. Is he the standard, or are there others to worry about? You know that stuff isn't going to get either one of us drunk, right? Kurama asks critically, eyeing the bottle as Roshi pours them each a measure of alcohol. The Jinchuriki rolls his eyes. You sound just like On, he complains. We're not drinking to get drunk. We're drinking for the taste. So shut up and enjoy it. Whatever. Kurama huffs, but accepts the cup Roshi pushes towards him and takes a wary sip. It doesn't burn too badly going down, clearly of better quality than what Kiba used to force on Naruto, but the flavor doesn't do all that much for Kurama either. He drinks it, since Roshi is doing the same, but it wouldn't be his first choice if he were alone. Akatsuki's a mixed bag, but they're all nuts. The main one to watch out for is a guy in a mask. He's got a Sharingan eye that can control the Biju, and it works on Jinchuriki too. One of them has the Rinnegan eyes as well. Kanaa's favorite trader Orochimaru, one of Suna's rejects, a girl who's way too fond of paper, and Hoshigaki Kisame the walking shark. Given that that's the basic lineup, you're best avoiding them at all costs, even if it means going back to Iwa. Roshi snorts derisively. I'm not going back, he says stubbornly. Han and I split up so it would be harder to track us. He'll cut through Fire Country, and I'll head after him once he's got a decent lead. But he's still got ties to his village. He can get word out to the others who aren't missing in. A thoughtful expression flickers over his face, and he asks, That why you grabbed the kids? Because they're vulnerable? Kurama scoffs, looking away. Not quite. Until someone in one of those villages learns how to take decent care of a 6-year-old. They're sticking with me. Naruto's family anyway, I'm not leaving him. With a quiet hum, Roshi drains his teacup and pours himself more sake. The Yombi's been screeching at me since he heard about you, he said almost casually. As soon as Han said your name, and that you called the Gobi brother, he started having a conniption. Care to tell me what that's about? Not really, Kurama answers warily. One dark red brow arches disbelievingly, and he sighs, scrubbing a hand through his knotted hair. It's complicated, he finally manages, and I'm not getting into it right now. But I'm related. Kokuo and Son both guessed, but Son's an arrogant, uppity bastard, and I'm not surprised that he's throwing a tantrum about it. Roshi's chakra flares wildly, and he jerks, flickers of heat making the air around him swim like a heat mirage. Kurama just smirks, taking another sip, and points out, Bet you can get him to stop screaming if you called him by name. Eyes narrowing, Roshi gives him a glare. I'm not that soft, yeah. Kurama hums. It's not about being soft, idiots. It's about respect. Son's the source of most of your power. Without him, you'd be crippled at best, or probably just dead. Pay him back and use his damn name. I will not. Roshi growls. He sits back on his heels and glares. You act like it's some kind of honor. Like I wanted this. Yes, he gives me power, but what do I get in return? I'm ostracized, hunted, and you, Kurama drawls pointedly, giving him a smug, sharp-edged smirk, are acting like you're the only one with no choice in the matter. Son Goku sure as hell didn't ask to end up trapped in your soul, and you never asked for him to be there. Just get along just for that, if nothing else, and count your blessings. Son's an egotistical son of a bitch, but at least he's not blanket crazy. Shikaku's been trapped and twisted by his seals for so long that there's not much left of what he used to be. Before I tweaked his seal, Gaara couldn't even sleep for fear of him taking control and slaughtering all of Suna. There's a long, tense moment of silence, and then Roshi nods just once. He looks away, tapping one finger against his cup, and clears his throat. Where are you taking them? Accepting the change of subject because he's not a complete jerk, and also because he's made his points, Kurama shrugs. There's something I need to destroy at the Akatsuki base northwest of Kumo, and I'm not about to take 2 baby Jinchuriki with me. Matatabi might be able to babysit, so I thought I'll work my way around, unless you... Roshi leans back, raising his hands as though to fend Kurama off. No, I'm terrible with kids, and besides, I want to stick close to Han. He's an idiot about a lot of things, like women. If they send that paper girl after him, he'll be blushing too hard to fight back. They must make quite a pair when they're traveling together, Kurama thinks with amusement, because Han is easily 7 feet tall, while Roshi doesn't even top out at 5. He snorts a little at the image, even though he's slightly disappointed that they're really going to have to haul themselves all the way to Kumo regardless. Still, he doesn't want to deal with B, not when Matatabi is an option, so it's not entirely the disappointment it could be. Don't try to fight Akatsuki if you do run into them, is what he says though. Just run! They've been training for years just to hunt the Jinchuriki, and no matter how strong you are, you're not going to stand a chance. Roshi stares at him for a long moment, sharp eyes studying Kurama's expression. Kurama looks back, letting him see just how serious he is. Akatsuki is powerful. Heck, Kurama can't think of another group that could have managed even half of what they did in his timeline. Obito is a mad bastard, but he's a terrifyingly clever one. And then Roshi says very softly, "Who'd you lose to them?" Kurama's breath catches sharply in his throat and he wrenches his gaze away, staring down at his cup because it's the only safe thing he can think to focus on. Already his body is tensing, shoulders coming up and heart starting to pound, but he forces himself back under control, fighting away the surge of run that's coursing through his veins. "A friend," he manages after a long moment, and the words come out just a bare decibel above a growl. "My best friend." There's a pause as Roshi regards him. Kurama can practically feel the man's gaze boring into the top of his head. Then Roshi sighs quietly, reaching for the sake. He fills his cup to the very top, downs it in 3 long swallows, and says, "All right, I'll run, and I'll make sure whoever I meet knows to do the same. B might take some convincing, but if he mentions it to his brother, A will be more than happy to make sure he does it." The promise is enough that Kurama nods. He pushes his own cup aside and rises to his feet. "I should check on Fuji. He matters. You sticking around for the night?" Roshi inclines his head, and his expression is grimly sad as he watches Kurama retreat towards the door. "I'll leave it on. I don't want Han getting too far ahead of me." "Night then." Kurama manages, then closes the door and stalks towards his own room. There's still laughter and voices coming from the bathroom, so he doesn't pause, just steps into the darkened room and immediately heads for the window. Rain is lashing at the glass, a hard, steady drumming, but Kurama throws it open regardless, leaning out to let the icy drops pelt his skin. "Best friend," he thinks, and it's somewhere between bitter and broken. He sees it again, Naruto falling with only emptiness in his blue eyes, blood staining his shirt, even as the seal on his skin blazed with light. Sees again that final smile, feels that final hug, his nose in sun-bright hair and strong arms wrapped around him. "You've always been a hero, Kurama. Now everyone will be able to see it." Naruto had whispered it to him, steady and certain, entirely unwavering. He'd had faith in Kurama more than anyone, and was the first to ever see him as a friend. Kurama stares at his hand, remembers tanned fingers entwined with his darker ones, the firm grip Naruto kept on his wrist as they faced each other. He can't quite stop the shattered, shaken sound that tears itself from his throat. Can't fight the way his eyes are burning, and he hunches forward over the sill, leaning out into the rain. Damn it all to hell and back. He misses his Naruto so much. It's not as though the 6-year-old version is a poor substitute. He's not, because he's Naruto, and that's all that matters. But there's no way for him to be what Kurama's Naruto was. No way for him to understand Kurama as fully as the man who pulled an angry, hateful Biju up out of the darkness and gave him a reason to care. He pretends that the wetness streaking his cheeks is just the rain, but it's painfully hot, and the raindrops are cold. How pathetic that he can't even lie to himself. The door opens, startling him enough that he spins, claws coming up. Before he can do anything, though, Naruto makes a loud sound of distress and cries, "Kurama-ni! Are you hurt? Are you okay?" On instinct, Kurama catches the small body that slams into his legs, grunting as he's knocked back a step. Thin, short arms wrap around his thighs as the boy presses close, and Kurama looks down at the top of his blonde head, remembers that last warm hug just before his world ended, and chokes on the edge of a sob. He drops to his knees, grabbing Naruto and dragging the boy against him, hugging him as tightly as he dares. "I miss him," he whispers. I miss him so much, Naruto, and I'm so tired of being sad. You're here. I found you, so I shouldn't feel like this anymore, but I can't stop it.
It's okay, Kurama-ni, Naruto says softly, worried but stubborn. Even if you're sad, it's okay. Me and Gaara are here, and we love you, and you're our big brother. I'm really happy you're here, Kurama-ni, no matter what, so being sad is always okay. We love you anyway.
It's such a Naruto way to comfort him that Kurama laughs, wet and rough and muffled against Naruto's small shoulder. He squeezes the boy just a little bit tighter, careful with his claws, and breathes, Thank you. Thank you, Naruto. I promise I won't leave you. I'm never going to leave you no matter what happens. Naruto doesn't say anything, just wraps his arms around Kurama and holds on. But really, that's all Kurama needs. He buries his face in blonde hair, breathing through the waves of grief that try to drag him down, and swears on everything that's ever been sacred that he'll never let go.